Welcome to the learning program on telephone skills. Hi, I am Aman, your learning guide for this course. In an increasingly highly paced and global business world, the telephone is an essential and effective business tool when used well. However, there are times when some people can feel that the telephone, in particular the ubiquitous mobile, is taking over their lives. How will this course help you? This topic will explain how to make the telephone work effectively for you and your team. It includes tips on planning and preparing calls, telephone etiquette, and projecting a professional image via the telephone. The telephone is a powerful tool and, like most powerful tools, it can be used well and to good effect or can lead to expensive mistakes when used poorly. The telephone can be both a good friend. We all enjoy catching up with friends and family with a chat on the phone. It can also be an enemy, causing us to suffer constant interruptions in our daily working life and preventing us from getting on with important tasks. Everyone needs to understand the role the telephone plays in their daily working life. The exact nature of this role will depend very much on the job function of the individual. For someone whose job is to answer incoming calls for an organization, answering the telephone will be a top priority. It is, after all, their main job. Purpose. The call could be predominantly a sales call, an advice-seeking call, an information call, a complaining call, a negotiation. Role. The participants' roles could include the problem solver, the provider/salesperson, the advisor, the friend/sympathetic ear, the purchaser. As mentioned before, the telephone is ubiquitous in business, so becoming a skilled user is an essential part of being successful in the business world. This topic covers the key points about using the telephone as an effective and efficient business tool. How to make the best use of the telephone as a tool. How to sound professional. What constitutes good telephone etiquette? How to gain maximum benefit from a typical business call. How to coach staff in using the telephone. To simplify learning, we have divided this course into multiple sections. For a better learning experience, we recommend you to go through the sections in the given sequence. However, you can also visit any section of your choice. Click each section to learn more. You can often predict the nature of incoming calls, bearing in mind factors like your role, the time of day or month, the absence of a colleague, a recent product release. If the incoming call is a scheduled one, the section on prepare for an outgoing call is relevant for these calls. Let us see some examples of incoming call and their procedures. Click each to know more. Fixed purpose calls. For example, at a call center taking orders, there will be a very rigid incoming call procedure, with scripts to ensure that certain information is captured and legal requirements are fulfilled. General incoming calls. For more general incoming calls, a limited script can be created to cover typical types of call, technical help, basic information seeking, complaints, cold calls and sales inquiries. This should include essential information. The initial response of the person answering the call is also crucial, as it should help the caller to quickly establish whether they are talking to the right person or should ask to be transferred. Unexpected calls. Obviously, there is always the chance that a completely unexpected call may arrive at someone's desk. Even in such cases, it is possible to give a professional response. You need to have a structure which ensures that you note down who has called, from which company and why, together with agreed actions. The introduction will depend on the kind of call that is expected. It should, however, be clear, friendly and informative, but not so long that it becomes tiresome to say and sounds it too. Let us see some examples. Click each to know more. A switchboard operator will probably not use their name but will ensure that the company name is clear and the welcome friendly. For example, "Good morning, Gerard's Computer Products, how may I help?" A call center person would be more likely to say, "Good morning, Gerard's Computer Products, my name is Sheba. How may I help?" For internal or transferred calls, it is unnecessary to give the company name, as it may also be for direct line numbers to which only existing contacts have access. This brings us to the end of section on preparing for an incoming call. Let's quickly summarize what you have learned in this section. The points listed for an outgoing call apply, especially if the call is scheduled. Consider whether you could use a scripted call procedure for expected calls. For unexpected calls, note down who has called, from which company and why. The introductory answer should be consistent, appropriate and informative. An external call is a door into the company. Callers should be welcomed in the same warm way as a visitor and should be made to feel valued. When an external person is talking with you, you are the company. The way that you handle the call will affect the caller's perception of your company, and of you. A company where many people or a team are answering the telephone, the company should have a telephone policy. This ensures that all calls are answered in the same way, and it helps to establish corporate identity and conveys a consistent and professional image. Make the formulas sound fresh and welcoming all the time and must include essential information so that the caller knows who they are talking to. A good morning or good afternoon is important at the beginning. It allows the caller to realize that the call has been answered, tune in and hear the company or department name. In case there is a delay in the connection or the person answering speaks too early, it is the greeting that is truncated, not the important company name. Also, do not sound insincere in a have a nice day sort of way. Every member of the team needs to follow the guidelines, design and publish a standard which is comfortable for the majority of people. If people are unwilling to follow the guidelines, find out the reasons. Alternatively, you may have to use peer pressure or other management techniques to help impose policy. There is no fixed rule, however, there are certain standards followed across professional domains. Let us learn some answering techniques. Click each to learn more. External calls. Always include the company name. If you are operating direct lines or call centers, it is usually appropriate to identify yourself. Calls should be answered in a way that is consistent, clear, friendly, professional and not too long-winded. Ensure you sound genuine in your call and that your greetings are meaningful. Internal calls are transferred calls. Use a warm positive tone, but it's not necessary to give the company name. Always identify yourself, however, so the person knows they have dialed correctly. In larger organizations, it may be appropriate to include the name of the department when answering a call. If you are answering someone else's call, make it clear you are not the person the caller was expecting. Your own techniques. Managers or group leaders should always set an excellent example when answering calls themselves. If a company telephone policy is in place, managers must follow it themselves. Everyone should have personalized introductions planned for both internal and external calls and use them every time to project a professional image. A professional image will be enhanced if the person answering the calls can sound as informed as possible about the availability of others. Having put the caller on hold, hunt around for information and then make a vague comment will look very unprofessional. A company-wide scheduling system will be more professional and will help a person to check others' availability. You will be able to tell someone when to expect a callback. Also, you will be able to answer the follow-up question as to whether someone else can help. Make sure every caller feels important and valued. Let us learn about using mute and hold options when you take a call. Click each to know more. Most telephone systems have a mute function that is rarely used to its full benefit. It is amazing at times what can be heard down a telephone when it is left on a desk while someone fetches something required for the call, or even when a token hand is placed across the mouthpiece in an attempt to muffle comments. Key tip: do you want your customers to hear disputes or swearing in the office, someone being rude about another customer, or perhaps to realize that another customer is getting a better deal than they are? Use the mute option. If you put a call on hold, make sure you inform the caller as to what is happening and do not keep the caller on hold for more than 30 minutes. An exception can be when you have explained that the person they want is on the telephone and the caller has agreed to hold. However, re-verify with the caller at intervals of no more than 1 minute. Let us see the steps to transfer a call and the situations you might encounter. Use voicemail or prepared message pads to reduce errors and ensure that the correct information is taken down. Ensure you take down the following minimum required information: name of caller, company of caller, time of call, telephone number of caller, reason for call, specific action required, for example, a callback, perhaps to give information, such as delivery details. Acquire additional information, such as a convenient time for a callback, the degree of urgency of the action and, if urgent, whether someone else could assist. Also, if this is known, the caller should be informed when they may expect a callback. This brings us to the end of section on how to answer the phone. Let's quickly summarize what you have learned in this section. The first impression many people will have of the company will be the person answering the telephone when they call. Voicemail is a powerful tool when used well and can be a great time saver. Let us learn about using voicemail. Within the evolving technology, voicemail and answer phones have moved from being something of a rarity to being so commonplace that it can be frustrating when it is not possible to leave a message. Click each to learn more. If you have the option, switch the telephone directly to voicemail when you are unable to take calls or do not want to be distracted for short periods. This is less distracting for others than if your phone keeps ringing. Do not overuse the voicemail facility. You don't want to create a reputation for being difficult to get hold of, and it can be frustrating for your colleagues, who end up having to take additional calls on your behalf. A voicemail message should make it clear to the caller who they have called and when they can expect a callback. The various facilities should be used to the full to maximize benefits. For example, if you have an option that allows you to leave different messages, depending on whether you are away from your telephone or engaged, then use it. Your voicemail message needs to be changed depending on how accessible you are. Let us see some examples. Click each to know more. Mostly available but away for short periods. Let us see a voicemail message format if you are only likely to be away for short periods. Hello, dear Roy, Yellow Systems Limited. I am sorry I am unable to take your call. Please leave your message and contact details after the tone and I will call you back shortly. This should be changed if shortly is going to be over a maximum of half a day, due to training, holidays or other absences. Difficult to contact and have unpredictable response time. People who are more difficult to contact and whose response time is thus more unpredictable should update messages daily, or weekly, as appropriate, giving few details. Let the caller know when a call back is likely. Hello. This is Tia Roy of Yellow Systems Limited. On Monday the 20th. I will be away from the office until late this afternoon, so please leave a message and contact details after the tone and I will call you back as soon as I am available. You need to be disciplined. A daily message sounds very professional when constantly updated but lazy when out of date, and the latter does not inspire confidence. Ensure that you balance the amount of information and not make your message long-winded and frustrating to listen to. Many systems have bypass options so that callers can avoid listening to the whole message. Additionally, if the callback is unlikely to happen soon enough to meet the caller's requirements, then give the listener other options, depending on the facilities offered by your system, such as: if you require to speak to someone immediately, please dial 0. I will be unavailable due to a training course until Wednesday. However, if you require assistance more quickly, please contact Tara M. on extension 123. Larger companies may have a set policy and formats for voicemails. This can add to the professional image, but should not be too constricting. You can use the voicemail system to increase your efficiency. If you know that you need to concentrate hard for an hour to complete a presentation, it makes sense to divert all calls to voicemail. Similarly, use voicemail if you are occupied in a meeting around your desk and would prefer not to be interrupted. Don't make voicemails as a default option to avoid taking calls. This is not only unprofessional but will also make you unpopular with your colleagues and will frustrate those needing to speak to you, which may include important customers. Voicemail is a time-efficient tool, enabling you to contact someone without necessarily needing to speak to them. For example, you might use it to confirm you have received a message about a meeting. If a brief message is all that is required, voicemail is usually quicker than actually speaking to someone. Moreover, voicemailing can often be done outside working hours. Let us see the best practice to leave a voicemail. Give your name, company name, time of message and phone number. The phone number is important as it is frustrating for the recipient to have to hunt around to find it. It is useful to include the number at the start of the call, so the recipient does not need to listen to the whole message again to catch the number. If appropriate, it can also be repeated at the end. Let us see an example. Hello. This is Anjana Dubey from Parth & Sons Private Limited at 10:30 a.m. on Friday the 10th, on 01234-567890. Actual message, my number again is 01234-567890. Goodbye. A voicemail message should be clear, concise and fairly simple. If the message is complex, then send an email or fax as well and refer to that in the voicemail. Let's see an example of an incomplete voicemail. Garima says, "Hi Sunita, it's Garima. Give us a call." Sunita has no idea when the call was left, unless the system tells her whether it is urgent or important or when would be a good time to call Garima back and on what number. Make sure you are clear whether you are expecting a call back or not, and if so, what the subject matter is. Make it easy for the recipient. This brings us to the end of section on preparing for an incoming call. Let's quickly summarize what you have learned in this section. Voicemail is a powerful tool when used well and can be a great time saver. Switch your phone to voicemail when you are unable to take calls or don't want to be distracted. Don't overuse, or you will get the reputation of being unavailable. The message should say who you are and when you are likely to be available to call back. If your schedule is unpredictable, update your message regularly, giving details so callers will know when to expect a callback. If necessary, give other options for urgent calls. When leaving a message, give your name, company name, time of message and phone number. Back up complex messages with an email or fax. So, let me quickly summarize the call. At the end of a call, always summarize the key points. Agree the next action, if relevant, and ensure that both have the same understanding of the outcome. If you are the caller, allow the other person to put the phone down first. Once the call has reached the desired conclusion and the other person continues with the call, you need to firmly but politely go into summarizing mode and close the call. Hanging up shows disrespect and a lack of control of the situation. It is likely to ruin the relationship, which may be difficult to repair afterwards. If you eat, drink, walk around or try to do two things at once, this will be picked up by the person on the other end and will project a negative and bored image. Eating and drinking while on the telephone are not good manners. An interruption when on the telephone appears rude to the person on the other end. If you are distracted, you may miss something important that is being said. The person you are talking to will likely realize that you are not paying attention. Try to avoid being interrupted. Make colleagues aware that they should only interrupt when it is essential, preferably by passing you a small note. If you are expecting an important call or have a meeting due, explain this to your caller. You can then either offer to call back at a time when you can give them your full attention or obtain their agreement to a possible interruption. The key is to make the person you are talking to know that you value their time as much as your own. Some telephone systems, in particular mobiles, allow you to make a second call while putting the first one on hold. This can be a very useful feature but can also be extremely frustrating for the other person. In general, it is better to let the second call go through to voicemail and avoid interrupting the first call. It is generally unacceptable to take calls in a meeting. If a really important call is expected, one option is to have a mobile on, but in silent mode. Only take that really important call, not others, and do not get distracted for other calls. The other, preferable, option is to leave your mobile off and divert your office telephone to a colleague, with strict instructions as to which call would warrant interrupting the meeting. If you are expecting calls and need to take them, follow these courtesy rules. Warn others at the start of the meeting that you may be interrupted. Apologize. If possible, give some form of explanation. When the person you want to speak to answers the telephone, don't assume that the person is available for your call. If the impatient tone of voice suggests otherwise, try to rearrange the call rather than continue. For calls that will be longer than a few seconds, check that the recipient is able to give sufficient time and attention to your call. If not, agree a convenient time when you can call back. If you are calling someone who does not really want to speak to you, indicate the benefits the conversation is likely to bring them before checking if it is convenient to continue the conversation. Don't commit yourself to calling back if you have no intention of doing so. Always call back when you have committed to do so. Tell them, firmly but politely, the first time around that you are not interested in their products or services or job application or whatever. If someone consistently leaves you to take their calls, ensure that internal frustrations should not be obvious to the caller. A professional face should be shown to the caller. If you have an internal issue, address it internally. If the person has a genuine reason to not take the call, do not give too much information to the caller while maintaining a professional approach. It is important to ensure that the whole team uses positive language and is professional at all times. In today's business environment, asking your secretary to connect to the caller can come over as being arrogant. When you call someone, you inevitably interrupt what they are doing. If you then expect them to wait while the call is put through to you, this appears rude. If you have someone's direct dial or mobile number, call them yourself. The exception to this would be at a very senior level, where the respective PAs can first agree a good time for the call, making sure it is convenient for both senior managers to take the call. This brings us to the end of section on telephone etiquettes. Let's quickly summarize what you have learned in this section. Following good etiquette makes the whole telephone experience easy and pleasant. Focus on the call, don't eat, drink, walk around or work on your computer. Try to avoid interruptions. If a colleague must interrupt, they should pass a note rather than speak. If you are able to make a second call while putting the first on hold, do this sparingly and only when appropriate. If you really need to take a call in a meeting, either have a mobile with you, but in silent mode, or detail a colleague to interrupt you when that vital call comes through. If the line goes dead, it is the caller who should ring back. When you ring someone, check that it is a convenient time for them to talk. If you have promised to call back, do so. The habit of using secretaries to make the call and then connect the caller to their boss is very much a thing of the past. It comes over as arrogant. Dealing with a difficult call is a challenge, especially when the person on the other end is irate or upset. In a face-to-face meeting you can use skills, such as an attentive look, a caring smile or clearly taking notes, thus instilling confidence that action will follow. This approach is difficult on a call without a visual interface. However, a well-handled call can do much to soothe a difficult situation. Let us learn how you can handle such calls. Let us see what skills are required to handle a difficult call. Click each to learn more. Listening skills. The ability to listen well is crucial. The caller needs to know that you are listening and taking an interest. Use a few telephone nods, such as and yes and I see, with caution. Check your understanding of the issues as the call progresses. Summarize main points back to the caller so they know you have heard and understood. It can help if you allow a very angry caller to let off steam with minimum interruption for a short time. Once the issue has been clarified, decide whether the call can be handled immediately or it needs to be transferred to someone else, perhaps a more senior person. Tell the caller why they are being transferred and to whom. You also need to give the person to whom you are transferring the call the contact details of the caller and an outline of the problem. This ensures that the caller will not have to repeat themselves. If the correct person is not available, the caller should be calmed down and reassured, but not patronized. Set a time frame within which they can expect to be called back. Repeat your own name again, so the caller has a contact to come back to if they still have an issue. An irate caller does not want to hear a sob story about how useless stores are for shipping the wrong thing yet again. This is unprofessional and does not create a good image of the company. The caller wants someone to show an interest in their problems and take responsibility for solving it. Inevitably, things will sometimes go wrong. Perhaps a product needs to be recalled due to poor batch quality, or deliveries will be late because something went wrong in the raw materials process, or a factory has burnt down. If it is to be expected that a person or team will be getting a lot of irate calls, then a manager must prepare the team to handle the problems. Members of the team should be provided with a fact sheet, a pre-prepared questionnaire to fill in, and details as to what information can be given out, when more goods will be available, and so on. Points to remember. It is a lot easier to deal with irate callers if the call takers are well prepared. At the same time, it is essential to retain the personal touch and demonstrate an interest in each caller's particular problem. It would be highly counterproductive if callers were to feel that they were on a production line of pat answers. This brings us to the end of section on how to handle difficult calls or irate customers. Let's quickly summarize you have learned in this section. A well-handled call can do much to soothe a difficult situation. Show you are listening by making remarks such as "I see." Summarize the main points, checking that you have all the necessary information. Make sure you have the correct contact details. Allow angry callers to let off steam. Make sure the caller knows who you are, what your job function is, and what action, if any, you intend to take. Use appropriate body language. People sense what they cannot see. If you need to transfer the call, explain why and to whom. If a lot of irate calls can be expected, prepare a team to handle the problems, but make sure that each caller receives personal attention. Here is a list of frequently asked questions. Click each to know more. How should I answer the telephone? Salutation and company name is the minimum for external calls. Salutation and own name is the minimum for internal or transferred calls. Sound friendly and helpful, with a sincere "How may I help you?" if appropriate. Achieve a balance between being too long-winded and providing insufficient information for the caller to know whether or not they are through to the right person. How can I portray a consistent company image on the telephone? Introduce a company phone policy, covering how calls should be answered and transferred. Ensure regular users are trained to use the telephone system to best effect. When is it appropriate to make or receive a call on a mobile telephone? When it will not disrupt or disturb others unduly. Calls should not be made when in inappropriate places, such as theaters, cinemas, or places of worship. Make calls only when the call can be given your full attention. Do not make or take sensitive calls when there is any danger of being overheard by those you would rather not hear the call. Be tactful and considerate of other passengers when traveling. Taking calls in meetings should be avoided if at all possible. How do I use voicemail efficiently? Ensure your own voicemail is clear, concise and friendly, but contains all relevant information. Change your own voicemail message as frequently as is required to ensure that callers know when to expect a return call. If your job entails traveling, learn how to access voicemail remotely if possible. When leaving a message, provide all essential information, such as your name, company, time of call, reason for call, action required, and contact details. How can I deal with interruptions while on the telephone? Body language. Make it clear you are concentrating on the call in hand. Make sure colleagues understand your priorities and know in which circumstances you will allow an interruption. They should also know your preferred way of being interrupted, such as a written note, passed quietly. Don't overestimate your own importance, allow others to handle potential interruptions on your behalf. Don't take a second call without very good reason, use voicemail. How can I maximize efficiency on a call? Plan and prepare your call, opening and objective. State how much time is available. Summarize and agree actions. Ensure you are speaking to the right person. Arrange to try again, if not convenient. How do I prevent the telephone taking over my life? Be polite and efficient when using the telephone. Understand the importance of the telephone in your role and, if appropriate, allow others or voicemail to take calls when something more important needs your undivided attention. Set aside a specific time slot in which to return calls, making several in succession. Use voicemail, if appropriate. Set time parameters around calls. Agree to attend only relevant conference calls. How do I prepare for a call? Plan and prepare your opening remarks. Know your objectives, and those of the other person. Review likely outcomes or reactions and plan for each. Before phoning, consider whether the telephone is the correct medium for the contact. If you are expecting an incoming call, use the same procedure as above. If you can expect frequent similar calls, prepare a script or crib sheet so that important information is not forgotten or missed. Here is a list of frequently asked questions. Click each to know more.